Welcome back to another week of what Barrie's talking about from Barrie 360. I'm Dan Blakely. Some serious stuff this week. The Ford government talking tough with education support workers. We'll look at the possible ramifications of what the government is thinking of doing. Inflation, high interest rates. We've been down this road before and come through it. We have some fun stuff, too. We meet members of the band The Human Drive, who won the recent Gussapalooza in Cookstown, and a Barrie man making his name in the world of Jiu Jitsu. But first, CUPE threatening to walk off the job in the contract dispute between education support workers and the province. Queen's Park looking to pass legislation to make such a strike illegal and impose a contract on those workers, all of which could change by the time you hear this. But what won't change is the impact the government's plan could have on labor in general. Barrie 360's Ian McLennan spoke with Michelle McDonald, president of the Barrie Labour Council, which represents 24 unions in the region.
The obvious concerns are that Doug Ford keep his hands off workers' rights. Not just allow CUPE, but allow anyone who is in public service to be able to negotiate a free and fair collective agreement and not to be, imposing, like as this legislation is indicating that, they're going to legislate them and basically tell them, here's your contract.
Do you believe it sets a dangerous precedent?
Absolutely. For anyone who has a collective agreement to negotiate going forward, obviously they have a majority, so this legislation is likely to pass and can certainly anytime the government then feels that they don't want to negotiate or feel that they've done all that they can, then they will just impose contracts on people.
It's not the first time, though, government has legislated on strikers. It's happened with other, teachers and what have you. What makes this different?
Different because, when you've legislated before, we've had the ability, as teacher unions and other unions, like even, for example, police and firefighters, they don't have and paramedics, they don't have the ability to strike, but they have the ability to go to arbitration to get a fair settlement. That step's being taken away. So when teachers were legislated before, there was an arbitration process. So you were able to go in front of an arbitrator and present your collective agreement or your proposal, and then the arbitrator would make a decision based on, that information and also information from the government, which made it, fair or fairer.
Barrie Labour Council President Michelle McDonald in conversation with our Ian McLennan. Okay, let's lighten things up a bit. Let's meet some musicians. Josh and Nick from The Human Drive, who won the grand prize at the recent Gussapalooza in Cookstown. Rock 95's Rachel Detta caught up with the boys.
First things first, Gussapalooza, Breakout Sound. And you guys have new music coming in December. Tell us about it.
Yeah, it's a song we've been working on since before the pandemic. We were recording and kind of everything got put on its head because of the pandemic, like many other people. So, we're using some of the money from Gussapalooza to finish off that song. And then we're excited, too, because mid-November we're going to go in and record, I think, 5 songs or try to get them going for the new year. So, we're really excited about that.
So keep our ears peeled for an EP coming then.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, we're going to try to, we'll see how we want to release it, but definitely new music coming in the new year for sure.
I feel like people's attention spans are a little lower nowadays, so maybe we'll do a single thing. Maybe compile it onto an EP mid-2023. But
absolutely. And Spotify, iTunes, everything. Awesome.
Yeah. The whole shebang. Yeah.
So before we jump to Gussapalooza, I want to talk about the band history. Where'd you guys get start? When? Why? Who?
Well, me and Nick actually started the band got to be over 10 years ago. Kind of out of high school. We went to high school together and kind of did drum and bass and all that stuff, just jammed and maybe a little bit of devil's lettuce and just,
helps with the inspiration, 100 times.
Sure, but then we started to, after a couple of years, kind of wanted to move into something a little bit more serious. So we, tried jamming with some guitar players. I play bass and sing, so started adding some lyrics and stuff to some of the songs we were jamming for years and tried out a couple guitar players, and nothing really sat right. And then we, oddly enough, put it like a Kitajew ad. And Adam answered that, and it just seems so weird. Like, we were talking about it actually with the people from Gussapalooza. We were down at the indie distributor at the 400 Flea Market last Saturday, and we were just saying, like, this a Kitajew ad just seems so weird. Like, you would just like, yeah, come jam, dude. And like, it actually worked out. So
no one creepy showed up. No one tried to murder you.
Nothing weird.
Yeah.
The fact that he was around our age too was like, oh, cool.
Very convenient.
Yeah, very nice.
Now, you guys did an interview with Canadian Beats, and you said you want to bring the balls back to rock and roll. What is this? So, was there a band or a sound that you had in mind when you said this, or?
I don't think exactly. That was a couple years ago, too, to be fair.
That was a while ago.
Yeah, I don't know. I think, you know, we come from hard rock and metal backgrounds and stuff, but we like to hear a little bit of oomph to the music. I think that's not necessarily something that's like missing with today, but it's something that I think could maybe use a little bit of a resurgence, maybe. You know what I mean?
So what was the music that you grew up on that kind of put you here and kind of brought you here?
Oh, my dad, he was, classic rock guy and everything, right? Like Guns N' Roses, Led Zeppelin.
Def Leppard, pour some sugar on me. Didn't realize what it meant till you got older.
No, 100%. Yeah. Here I am rocking to AC/DC's Shook Me All Night Long when I'm 7 years old, thinking it's totally fine. And it's like, no, it's
way over
totally
your
about
head.
Sex. So, my dad got me into that, but then my brother started listening to heavier music and everything, like, got into that new metal Korn and Limp Bizkit and stuff.
Woodstock 99!
Oh, so dope. But, for me, it was, mainly my dad's influence and my brother's influence in music, that kind of got me going with it, and then I started listening to Deftones, Tool, that 90s grunge era, Alice in Chains. Like they're they're the pioneers for what it got started for me, right?
Absolutely. And Tool's always been one of those like underground rock bands that somehow everyone's heard and has always been inspired by, right?
100%. Yeah. They're just they created such a unique sound with what they had back in when they first came out, like 92 or whatever, 91, 92. So it just,
and they were like a little bit psychedelic too, so it kind of like it always had, like, I remember just us growing up, we were like in high school, we were very into that band.
Smoking pot, listen to Grateful Dead.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. Just like learning every single note, every single drum beat, and just like, this is the sickest thing I've ever heard.
Okay, so Gussapalooza, 70 bands. You only had to perform once to really make an impact. Can you maybe like point to what it was in that performance that you're like, okay, we sealed the deal, we got this? Or you don't want to toot your own horn because you can't really think of it.
Yeah, honestly, I don't know. For me,
we were like really humbled to like obviously win and like surprised, because there were some really amazing bands there, and like you kind of said, it's not like tooting our own horn, but like I don't know exactly what it was, but I'd like to think that our sound as a band is, everyone probably says this, but like unique to our own type of thing, and we're trying not to like, when you listen to our band, be like, oh, this reminds me of this. Like maybe there's elements in it, but like it's not like I don't want to use the word rip off, but like, you know what I mean?
Inspiration,
like, but still like kind of carving your own path type thing. Where it's like, oh, this is like unique, but it's not so far out that like you can't really,
And I don't know about you, but I like listening to a song and being like, okay, I can hear the Floyd influence here, the Elton influence here, and I really like hearing that because you can see where the band kind of came from, right?
Yeah, exactly.
2.5 years since you guys performed. What was the rehearsal like, or the preparation leading up to Gussapalooza, like compiling your set list, all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, we were just kind of trying to be honest with ourselves because you only have like a certain amount of time, and just trying to like maximize what our, not getting so many songs in. Let's just try to like put on the best performance and go with our strongest songs and what we feel is the strongest. And it's also because you haven't played in 2.5 years. We're trying to work on new music and kind of got stifled through the last 2 years. So we're like, play a couple songs from the EP, but also we want to like start showcasing what we've been working on. People might not necessarily know those songs, but like we're trying to like perform them for the first time.
The Human Drive have a date, November 23rd at Sneaky Dee's in Toronto, if you're so inclined. What Barrie's Talking About is a weekly podcast featuring the best Barrie has to offer and more. You can make it easy to connect by subscribing to What Barrie's Talking About through most podcast distributors. Still to come on What Barrie's Talking About, a Barrie man shines on the Jiu Jitsu world stage, and we talk inflation, how it happened, what we can do about it now, and what we can do to prepare for it next time. Now this.
It's cool to care.
Big Brothers Big Sisters of North Simcoe presents Holiday Survivor. Sign up and support a great cause. Holiday Survivor is an elimination-style draw that runs from December 5th to 9th. Funds raised support youth mentoring programs in North Simcoe for youth aged 6 to 17. By supporting this event, you are helping to create a stronger, more resilient community of youth. Registration opens November 14th. Sign up your team of 6 for $40 a person at northsimcoe.bigbrothersbigsisters.ca. The Big Brothers Big Sisters of North Simcoe Holiday Survivor, sponsored by Avionics Design Incorporated.
Cool to Care is brought to you by Mortgage Wellness, answering questions, solving problems, and maximizing your family's cash flow.
It's cool to care with 107.5 Cool FM.
This is What Barrie's Talking About from Barrie 360. I'm Dan Blakely. Barrie's Lee Kitajew has been involved in one way or another with Brazilian Jiu Jitsu for several years, having competed in a number of tournaments and most recently his first professional match. Barrie 360's MJ sat him down for a chat about the sport and his involvement.
What exactly is Jiu Jitsu? It's not karate. It's not, what's the best way to describe it for anyone who's never seen?
Brazilian Jiu Jitsu, it's a grappling art form. There's no striking. It was brought to probably the attention of the masses about 25, 30 years ago through the Gracie family and the UFC. So it's a martial art that's very good in self-defense, that just allows you to isolate limbs and choke people, but it's very good for a smaller individual to use technique and application of their body in order to escape a particularly bad situation. If you have a larger person on top of you, you can use the dynamics of your body to get your hips away from his hips and get away from that particular bad situation. It's a very complex martial art, but a simple one at best when you break it down to its principles.
If someone wants to get started, obviously it's going to be a little bit intimidating, but how hard is it now for you? It was a little bit, training in these small garages and stuff, but is it more readily available now for
Absolutely. People? There are several gyms available in Barrie. Many of them offer free trials where you could go in, you could try a few classes out, and you could see if it's for you.
It's a common misconception. I know a lot of people think, well, okay, it looks really cool or whatever, but I'm not in good shape. I'm not the right body type. I'm not any of this. Does any of that hold true, or if anything, you learn as you go?
That's something I hear a lot of people say when I'm trying to tell them, hey, give it a shot. You know what? I'm gonna run on the treadmill until I get in a little bit better shape. Your body will adapt. Your body will figure it out. Just jump in there. It's going to be, the hardest cardiovascular experience if you're not used to it your first time out, but the next time it's going to feel better, and the next time it's going to feel better, and then you're going to take away whether it's techniques, whether you make a new friend, whether the message that the coach is delivering has another effect on something else that's going on in your life. I guarantee you, if you spend an hour in a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu gym, you're going to go away with something.
All right. And how is it for there's all this talk about fitness and mental health. How is this different from, I guess, other fitness programs, and how does it help? I don't know, just your mental health altogether.
I think it helps your mental health because immediately off the bat, you're forced to be completely vulnerable. Mm-hmm. You're forced to be in a situation where you have to trust a lot of the people around you, and you don't know what's going on. You're sort of incompetent in the sport and unaware of the incompetence. I don't know if that's the proper word to describe it, but it's
sort of like the trust test almost, right?
So you're trusting all these people around you to guide you in the right direction and give you advice, or training you through techniques to make yourself better at this sport, get yourself in better physical condition. And then also you'll end up making better decisions if you end up sticking with it. And what I mean by that is, so you go to a class on a Saturday morning, right? And you go for the first class, and the Friday night before you had, 5 or 6 beers, you ate a plate of chicken wings, and then you go to this jiu-jitsu class that your friend convinces you to go to the next morning, and you feel, you get through it. You're happy that you got through it. You feel terrible where you're like, oh, I got through that. You know what? I'm going to go back next weekend. And, then Friday before, I'm not going to drink 5 beer. I might eat a little bit lighter than a plate of chicken wings. Then you go back and you feel great. And then all of a sudden, that not drinking and not, eating horrible on the Friday night, it just becomes a habit. And then you're in jiu-jitsu and then you're me in a few years. You're just, it's all you do, and you don't have to be an adult.
Lee trains out of Submission Arts Academy in Barrie with Professor Spencer Lalonde. It was a plentiful Thanksgiving food drive for the Barrie Food Bank, and it needed to be with an influx of new people in need. Barrie 360's Will Conkin got caught up with Barrie Food Bank Executive Director Sharon Palmer.
So you had a goal of raising 150,000 pounds of food and $150,000 during the Thanksgiving drive. Was that achieved?
Yes, we were successful. So we achieved we just nudged over our pounds, so 156,000 pounds. And we were able to exceed our financial target, over 200,000 pounds, or $200,000.
Was there anything surprising during this drive? Was just a lot of people out supporting and donating?
So I think the nice thing that happened is we sort of got back to broader community involvement. So in the past, we've had a history of working with the service clubs, the schools, and the churches in particular. And this was the first time in a couple of years that we've been able to broadly engage those groups and have their support, again, at the same levels that we had seen, pre-pandemic. And it was wonderful to see the schools and the churches, in particular, the service clubs they've continued to support us through the pandemic, but more food drives and just really being there to support us again. So that was lovely to see.
Coming out of the pandemic, do you think everyone was kind of not in a better spirit, but ready to get back to maybe regular things, to get back to donating more?
Yes, I think so. And we've been lucky in this community to have groups that will go out and do things for us. So I'll give you an example, like the Run for Barrie. That was a new fundraiser that happened in the community, had never been done before, was pulled together really quickly, and it was a definite success. So that was really lovely to see, just the community coming up with new ideas and ways to support us, and really appreciated that.
The number of households served at the food bank, I think, was up a fair bit over last year for September. Why do you think that was?
So I think that there's kind of, a few factors playing into that. So what we're seeing more of is people who are employed, particularly in minimum wages or gig economy, who are not able to meet their bills with the income that they're making. So that's a new group that is perhaps a change from the past, with more employed people looking for support for food. We see more students now, and of course the trend for people on social assistance has been one that's been around for a while now, but it continues to be a concern. Seniors, people on Ontario Disability support payments, and OW, just not able to keep up with the cost of living on the social assistance that they're receiving.
Do you know how October looked year over?
Year over year for October, in terms of the number of individuals, it's over 100% increase in terms of number of individuals, about 3,300 people. Very similar to our September numbers, in fact. We were seeing, 80, 90, 100 people in a day. And just in terms of the volume of people coming through the door and the level of support that we have to have from a volunteer perspective, we're definitely looking to have extra people on our shifts to be able to keep up.
With the increase year over, are services like the food bank more important than ever?
For sure. I mean, if we weren't there for some of these people, it would be a very desperate situation. And I think if I think about one group that is, the ones that are coming every month, it's people who are on ODSP, for example. They don't have a lot of other alternatives, right? In many cases, and so we are their sole source of food for many of those people. So that's a definite concern as more and more of those people are relying on the food bank.
How do we end the stigma and say it's all right to use the food bank when needed?
Well, I think it's just about recognizing that, everyone has ups and downs in their life, and that, we are a service that's here for those times when you need us. And when people come and actually experience the food bank, I think they're often very pleasantly surprised at how welcoming we are, how we try to help everybody out with their special needs, and just it's maybe what wasn't what they thought it was going to be. And we have some wonderful volunteers, what can I tell you, that really try to make it a good experience for everyone who comes in our door.
As successful as the Thanksgiving food drive was, help is always needed. Food donations can be dropped off at most grocery stores or at the food bank on Ann Street. Cash donations can be made at barriefoodbank.org. Inflation, a big part of the reason so many are relying on the food bank, but as bad as it seems, it's been worse, much worse. Some of us remember the late 70s, early 80s when inflation and mortgage rates were running around 20%. Don't want to diminish the impact it's having this time around, but do want to offer reassurances, backed up by Sandra Ramos of IG Wealth Management in Barrie, who has been through this before and keeps a watchful eye on it. We are in a inflationary period, again, not like we haven't been here before, but I don't think a lot of people either remember the last few times we've been there or they weren't around for that. So let's talk about that for a minute, because as daunting as this seems right now, we're going to get out of this eventually.
Yes, we definitely will get out of it eventually. I think inflation is something that is good for the markets in some ways, for sure. It's just the nervousness about how it's going to affect finances. Of course, home finances are the biggest thing that we're talking about. The cost of goods going up, groceries, gasoline, even your property taxes going up. Canadians are fighting this inflationary battle from all fronts. And I think as a financial planner, it's a very good time for people to learn how budgeting can be so important. During the pandemic, of course, people were getting extra money from the government. And, instead of maybe saving this money for a rainy day, they were spending it. Now they have to take stock of what they've been doing and sort of relook at their budget and planning.
As we come out of that inflationary period in the 80s, things got very good. People were getting raises. There was lots of money to be spent. People were getting jobs. We were living the good life, and maybe we were living it a little too well.
Yeah, I think eventually it always catches up to you, and the positive or the negative. But I think overall, if the government can get inflation under control, which I'm sure they will, it just takes some time, we'll get back to probably more normalized growth, which everybody wants to get to. And having a little bit more money in your wages or having taken stock of your family budget and maybe being a little bit more critical of how you're spending your money is never a bad idea.
How did we get to this point? Everybody's pointing a finger in different directions. They're pointing at the government in Ottawa. They're pointing at the pandemic. They're pointing at OPEC. They're pointing here. They're pointing there. Is there any one thing that brought us to this moment?
I don't think there is one thing. I think it is multidimensional. And I think if you look at history, when we've gone through inflationary times, there's always a different catalyst that starts it off. This situation is very complex, and certainly I can't speak to some of the micro analytics behind it But I would say that, people just not having a lot of care over their spending is certainly not helping matters, but the other is just the amount of money that's gone into the system. And of course, the pandemic, all the cash that went into the market. Really what's happening is we're having a huge reset. The real estate market was overinflated, stock market was overinflated, wage growth was getting overinflated, the job market was crazy. So I think we need this reset to, firm our foundation so that we can grow further in the market and the economy.
1981, the Bank of Canada rate was 20%. I remember looking at a house. I think 3 years into this broadcasting career at that point. I was looking at a house in London, Ontario, and the mortgage rates were 17%. Gasoline was sky high for that period of time, not anywhere near what the price is now. But as I said earlier, we came out of that. We're still here. There were some boom times after that, and maybe we were just a little bit careless with all of that, and we hit another recessionary period, and a couple more since then. Not quite as severe as 1981, not quite as severe as this now, but we seem to go in cycles.
Markets always run in cycles. Economy runs in cycles. You can't really compare what's happening now with any other decade that we've gone through. It's always been a different situation. And I think primarily if people understand that when it's bad, it's not going to stay bad. And when it's good, it's not going to stay good. The truth is we run in both bull markets, bear markets, inflationary times, deflationary times. And just being a good planner with your finances and being ready for a rainy day, this sort of exemplifies that.
Let's talk about that then. How we get through this period, however much longer that takes, first of all, and then after that, how do we prepare and be ready for the next time?
I know a lot of people are looking to their financial advisors and their financial companies to give them some kind of a forecast on when this is going to be over, first and foremost. And the truth is, you can't forecast, and most forecasts are usually wrong. I think in order to get through this period of time, again, it comes back to just good old-fashioned financial planning and budgeting and just being very careful where you're spending money and save where you can. And I think just, adjusting your habits perhaps to be a little bit more fiscally frugal and to prepare for the next time, because there will be a next time. I mean, this will pass and we'll have a few years of good growth and we'll forget all about this. It'll all be a bad memory. And to be prepared for that next time when it comes, perhaps having a little more in savings, utilizing your tax-free savings account, making sure you're doing your RSPs where they're applicable, having your financial planning in place. That's the way that you're prepared for the next time. And perhaps the next time people won't be as frightened because they'll have had this experience.
I think that's one of the keys here right now is that a lot of people haven't been through anything this severe before, and they're not sure how to handle it. They're not sure how to change their habits because they're so used to being able to just do whatever they wanted to do, where I remember in 1980-81, there was a lot of coupon clipping going on, and I was reining things in. We have to take this all in stride. We have to make some changes, and it's going to be more difficult for some than for others, but we are going to pull through this.
Yeah, I think one thing to remember is there's a whole generation of people that have no experience with higher interest rates. And these are the same generation now that have gotten into, $1 million mortgages at very low interest rates. And it's something that we have experienced at our age of understanding what it's like to have an 11% car loan or understanding what it's like to have a 14% mortgage. Not having the experience, I think it's important to speak to your parents about what did they do when things were tough in the 80s and the 90s. Speaking to peers maybe that have a little bit more financial planning experience. Speak to your professionals. Speak to your financial advisor. Look for tips and tricks to getting through this, I think is really important. There's lots on the internet now that's easy to access for budgeting and setting a cash flow analysis out. And just talk to your parents. They'll tell you what it was like and what they did.
When I first contacted you, you wrote back and your first line was, it's never as good as we'd like it to be, but it's never as bad as we think.
It's very true. And I think, public sentiment has a lot to do with where we are and where we're going to. Because, if everybody felt like it was, the end of days and they're not going to spend money and they're going to stay in their homes, then that's going to have an automatic reaction in consumer spending. I think if people focus on what they can control, because there's a lot right now we can't control. And, there's obviously other things external happening with the war in Ukraine and a lot of geopolitical pressures, and you just have to watch what's happening right now in Europe. There's things we just can't do anything about. So we have to focus on what we can do. And where we can start with that is our own personal finances and make sure our house is in order. Sometimes people feel very overwhelmed. They have a lot of credit card debt, they have a line of credit, they have a car loan, they have a mortgage, and now they're maybe even laid off right now. Where do they start? What do they do? There are tools out there in the form of, counseling for debt. There are financial advisors that work specifically with debt consolidation and helping you get back on track. Because without having your debt under control, there really is no room for progression.
So, key things here, rein things in as best you can now. Be very, very careful with your spending moving forward. As you said, talk to somebody who's been there, a parent, a friend, an aunt, an uncle, a financial advisor, somebody who knows what's gone on before and what is likely to happen, and then plan for the next phase, which will come.
Absolutely. That's exactly what you need to do.
Sandra Ramos is an executive financial consultant with IG Wealth Management in Barrie. And that's our program for this week. Thanks to Ian, Will, MJ, and Rachel for their contributions, Matt Ladder for piecing it all together for us, and you for giving it a listen. If you like what you've heard, please subscribe to What Barrie's Talking About. Rate it, review it. You can also keep up with What Barrie's Talking About on Facebook and Twitter at Barrie360 and on our website, Barrie360.com. I'm Dan Blakely, hoping you'll join us again next week.